History is a river with many hidden currents, stories that flow beneath the surface of what we commonly know. We often see leaders and historical figures as belonging to just one place, one nation. But their stories are rarely that simple. The story of Ayatollah Khomeini, the man who changed Iran forever, does not begin in Iran at all. It starts in a small quiet village in India, a place called Kintoor in Uttar Pradesh. This village, nestled in the fertile plains of the Awadh region, was once a vibrant center for Islamic learning and poetry. Its air filled with the scent of mango groves and the sounds of scholarly debate. It is from this very soil that the roots of one of the 20th century's most powerful leaders grew, connecting two vast and ancient cultures. Imagine Kintoor in the early 1800s. It was a place where faith and knowledge were deeply respected. The family of Khomeini's ancestors were part of this world. They were Sayyids, descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, and they carried a legacy of scholarship that had traveled from Persia to India generations before. His grandfather, a man named Syed Ahmed Musavi, was born into this environment of deep spiritual devotion. He grew up hearing stories of distant lands, of holy cities in Persia and Iraq, and of a faith that connected people across deserts and mountains. This Indian beginning is a crucial yet often forgotten chapter in the life of the man who would one day lead the Iranian Revolution. This connection is more than just a footnote in a history book. It is a testament to the powerful, invisible threads that link civilizations. The journey of Khomeini's family from India to Iran is a story of migration, faith, and identity. It shows us how ideas and people have always moved, sharing their cultures and creating new legacies in new lands. The story of Ayatollah Khomeini is therefore not just an Iranian story. It is also an Indian story, a tale of how a family from the heart of Uttar Pradesh came to shape the destiny of a nation thousands of miles away, forever linking the history of Kintoor with the city of Khomeini. The name that Khomeini's grandfather carried with him to Iran tells this story in a single word: Hindi. Even after settling in a new country and becoming part of its society, he proudly kept this title, meaning the one from India. This was not just a label, it was a declaration of his origins, a reminder of the land he came from. It was a piece of India that he planted in Iranian soil, a piece that would grow and blossom through his children and grandchildren. This small detail reveals a deep respect for his heritage, a connection that neither time nor distance could erase, and it offers us a profound lesson about how our roots always remain a part of who we are. In the year 1830, Syed Ahmed Musavi Hindi made a decision that would alter the course of his family's history forever. He was a man of deep faith, and like many devout Shia Muslims of his time, he felt a powerful calling to make a pilgrimage to the holy shrines in Iraq. His destination was Najaf, a city that has been a beacon of Shia scholarship for centuries. He bid farewell to his home in Kintoor, expecting perhaps to return one day with his spiritual duties fulfilled. But destiny had a different path planned for him. The journey from the plains of Uttar Pradesh to the sacred cities of Iraq was long and arduous, a test of faith and endurance that would lead him far beyond his original destination. This was not merely a trip, it was a spiritual quest. For a scholar from Kintoor, visiting Najaf was like a scientist visiting the world's greatest laboratory. It was a place to deepen his knowledge, to meet with the most respected religious minds of his generation, and to be closer to the history of his faith. Syed Ahmed immersed himself in the intellectual and spiritual life of the holy city. He studied, he prayed, and he connected with a global community of believers. The vibrant atmosphere of Najaf, filled with pilgrims and scholars from across the Muslim world, must have been a world away from the quiet life he had known in his Indian village. After completing his pilgrimage and studies in Iraq, something shifted in Syed Ahmed's plans. Instead of turning back towards India, he looked east, towards Persia, the land his own ancestors had once come from. Around the year 1834, he made his way to a small town called Khomeini, located in the central province of Iran. Why he chose this town is part of the mystery of his journey, but it was here that he decided to put down new roots. He settled in Khomeini, married, and started a new life. He became a respected religious figure in the local community, known for his wisdom, his piety, and his proud Indian heritage. Though he built a new life in Iran, Syed Ahmed never forgot where he came from. He carried the name Hindi as a badge of honor, ensuring that his children and the community around him knew of his Indian origins. He passed away in 1869 and was laid to rest in the holy city of Karbala in Iraq, completing his life's journey between the three lands that had shaped him: India, Iran, and Iraq. His son, Mustafa, would continue the family's scholarly tradition in Khomeini, and it was Mustafa's son, Ruhollah, born in 1902, who would carry the family name and its hidden Indian history onto the world stage. To truly understand the journey of Khomeini's family, we must look at the deep spiritual bond that has connected India and Iran for centuries. This bond is built on the foundations of Shia Islam. The Awadh region of India, where Kintoor is located, has long been a major center of Shia culture, often called the Shiraz of India. Cities like Lucknow and Barabanki became hubs of religious scholarship, poetry, and art that were deeply influenced by Persian traditions. This shared faith created a bridge between the two regions, allowing for a constant flow of people, ideas, and cultural practices back and forth across the distance. This connection wasn't just abstract, it was personal and familial. Many Shia families in India trace their lineage back to Persia, having migrated centuries ago. Similarly, Indian scholars and pilgrims frequently traveled to the great learning centers of Iran and Iraq, such as Qom, Mashhad, and Najaf. They went there to study, to teach, and to pay homage at the holy shrines. This created a living network, a community of faith that transcended national borders. Syed Ahmed Musavi Hindi's journey was part of this larger historical pattern, a well-trodden path for those seeking knowledge and spiritual fulfillment within the Shia world. The culture that flourished in Awadh was a beautiful blend of Indian and Persian influences. The architecture, the language, the poetry, and the religious ceremonies all reflected this synthesis. The mournful processions of Muharram, the passionate recitations of elegies, and the deep respect for religious scholars were traditions that resonated equally in Lucknow and Isfahan. This shared cultural language meant that when Syed Ahmed arrived in Iran, he was not a complete stranger. He entered a world whose values, traditions, and spiritual landscape were already familiar to him, thanks to the rich Shia heritage he had grown up with in India. This deep-rooted connection explains why an Indian scholar could so seamlessly integrate into Iranian society and become a respected religious leader. He was not seen as an outsider, but as a fellow believer from a land that held a special place in the Persian cultural imagination. India, or Hind, was often romanticized in Persian poetry and literature as a land of mystique, wisdom, and spirituality. Khomeini himself would later reference Hind in his own poetry, a subtle nod to the ancestral land that his grandfather had so proudly represented. This shared heritage was the fertile ground from which his own life and mission would eventually grow. Ruhollah Khomeini was born in the town of Khomein in 1902 into a family legacy steeped in religion and resistance. His very name, Ruhollah, means Spirit of God, and he seemed destined for a life of spiritual significance. His father, Mustafa Musavi, was a respected cleric in the town, just as his grandfather, Syed Ahmed Musavi Hindi, had been before him. However, his father was tragically murdered when Ruhollah was just 5 months old, killed for standing up against the abuses of a local governor. This early loss meant that Ruhollah was raised by his mother and his aunt, both strong women who instilled in him the family's values of courage and justice. From a young age, Ruhollah showed a remarkable aptitude for learning. His education began at home, where he studied the Quran and Persian literature. He was a serious and intelligent child, drawn to the world of books and religious scholarship. He followed the path laid out by his father and grandfather, dedicating himself to Islamic studies. He traveled to the nearby city of Arak and later to the holy city of Qom, which was rapidly becoming the most important center for Shia learning in Iran. In Qom, he studied under some of the most brilliant scholars of his time, mastering Islamic jurisprudence, philosophy, and mysticism. But Khomeini was not just a scholar confined to his books. He was also a keen observer of the world around him. He witnessed the growing influence of Western powers in Iran and the policies of the ruling Pahlavi dynasty, which he believed were undermining the country's independence and its Islamic identity. He was deeply troubled by the poverty and injustice he saw among ordinary people. These early experiences shaped his worldview and planted the seeds of his future political activism. He believed that a true religious leader could not remain silent in the face of oppression. Faith for him demanded action. During his years as a student and then as a teacher in Qom, he earned a reputation not only for his sharp intellect, but also for his unwavering integrity and his simple, disciplined lifestyle. He became a teacher to hundreds of students who were drawn to his powerful lectures and his fearless criticism of the government. He was not just teaching religious texts, he was teaching a new way of thinking about the role of Islam in society. He argued that Islam was not just a religion of private prayer and ritual, but a comprehensive guide for social and political life. This powerful idea would become the foundation of his revolutionary movement. By the early 1960s, Iran was ruled by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, a monarch who pushed for rapid modernization and secularization. His policies, which were called the White Revolution, aimed to transform Iran into a Western-style nation. Now, while these reforms did include some positive changes, like land distribution and women's suffrage, they were also seen by many as an attack on Iran's traditional and religious values. The Shah's government was, notoriously corrupt and was backed by the United States, which made a lot of Iranians feel as though their country was being controlled by foreign powers. It was in this climate of growing discontent that Khomeini's voice really rose to prominence. From his position as a leading religious authority in Qom, Khomeini became the most outspoken critic of the Shah's regime. He delivered fiery sermons that condemned the government's policies, its close ties to the US and Israel, and its disregard for Islamic law. He accused the Shah of betraying the nation and its people. His words resonated deeply with millions of Iranians, especially the poor, the traditional merchant class, and the students in religious seminaries. He was not just a cleric, he was becoming the voice of the voiceless, articulating the anger and frustration that many felt but were simply too afraid to express. The turning point came in 1963. After a particularly powerful speech denouncing the Shah directly, Khomeini was arrested. His arrest sparked massive protests across Iran, which were brutally suppressed by the Shah's security forces, resulting in the deaths of thousands. This event, which came to be known as the 15th of Khordad uprising, transformed Khomeini from a religious opponent into a national symbol of resistance. He had shown that he was willing to risk his life for his beliefs. The Shah's government, hoping to silence him, decided to send him into exile. So, in 1964, he was forced out of Iran, beginning a long and lonely journey that would take him first to Turkey and then to Iraq. Exile, however, did not silence Khomeini. In fact, it actually amplified his voice. From the holy city of Najaf in Iraq, the same city where his Indian grandfather had studied over a century before, he continued his campaign against the Shah. He developed his theory of, or the guardianship of the Islamic jurist, which argued that in the absence of the rightful imam, the government should be run by the most learned religious scholars. He smuggled his lectures and messages back into Iran on cassette tapes. These tapes were copied and distributed through a vast underground network, turning kitchens, shops, and mosques into centers of revolution. The Shah had removed the man, but his voice was now everywhere. For nearly 15 years, from the quiet of his exile, Ayatollah Khomeini patiently nurtured the seeds of revolution. The cassette tapes carrying his sermons became the most powerful weapon against the Shah's modern army. His voice, filled with conviction and moral authority, traveled across the border and into the homes of millions of Iranians. He spoke of justice, independence, and a return to Islamic values. He contrasted the corruption and extravagance of the monarchy with the simple, pious life that Islam taught. This message struck a powerful chord with a population that felt increasingly alienated from its own government and culture. By the late 1970s, Iran was a country on the brink. The Shah's regime, despite its outward appearance of strength and modernity, was deeply fragile. Economic problems, combined with relentless political repression by the notorious secret police, Savak, had created a pressure cooker of social unrest. the revolution began to accelerate in 1978. A government-sponsored newspaper article insulting Khomeini sparked massive demonstrations in the city of Qom. When the Shah's forces opened fire on the protesters, it set off a cycle of mourning and protest that spread like wildfire across the country, uniting Iranians from all walks of life: students, merchants, workers, and intellectuals. The revolution was a unique phenomenon. It was not led by a political party or a military general, but by an elderly cleric in exile. His image was everywhere, on posters held aloft in street demonstrations, in graffiti on city walls, and in the hearts of the people marching for change. The Shah's government responded with increasing brutality, but the violence only strengthened the people's resolve. Slogans like independence, freedom, Islamic Republic echoed through the streets. The movement grew so powerful that the army, the pillar of the Shah's power, began to crumble as soldiers refused to fire on their own people. Finally, facing a complete loss of control, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi fled Iran on January 16, 1979, never to return. His departure created a power vacuum and paved the way for Khomeini's triumphant return. On February 1, 1979, after more than 14 years in exile, Ayatollah Khomeini flew back to Iran. He was greeted by millions of euphoric Iranians who lined the streets of Tehran to welcome their leader. It was a moment of incredible historical significance. The 2,500-year-old Persian monarchy had been toppled, not by a foreign invasion or a military coup, but by the will of the people, inspired by the voice of a man whose own story began in a small village in India. After the revolution's success, Ayatollah Khomeini was confirmed as the supreme leader of the newly formed Islamic Republic of Iran. He was no longer just a spiritual guide, he was the ultimate political authority in the country. He oversaw the creation of a new constitution based on his principle of establishing a theocracy where religious law and leadership were supreme. This was a radical new form of government, one that challenged the existing world order, which was dominated by the Cold War rivalry between the capitalist West and the communist East. Iran, under Khomeini, declared it would be neither East nor West, forging its own independent path. What was most striking about Khomeini as a leader was his personal lifestyle. In a world where political power usually comes with wealth and luxury, he chose to live with incredible simplicity. He rejected the grand palaces of the former Shah and instead lived in a small, sparsely furnished house in a modest neighborhood of North Tehran. His home had just 2 rooms, and he famously refused to allow public funds to be used for its renovation, even when his followers offered. This austerity was a powerful symbol. It stood in stark contrast to the opulence and corruption of the monarchy he had overthrown, and it demonstrated that he was a leader who truly lived by the values he preached. Khomeini's leadership was defined by a deep sense of conviction and an unshakable will. He guided Iran through some of its most difficult years, including the brutal 8-year war with Iraq, which was launched by Saddam Hussein in 1980. He faced immense pressure from both the United States and the Soviet Union, yet he refused to bow to either. His decisions were often controversial, both inside and outside Iran, but he remained a figure of immense authority and reverence for his millions of followers. He was seen as a father figure to the nation, a protector of the revolution and its ideals. Khomeini's legacy also continued through his family. His Indian ancestry remained a point of interest and pride within Iran. Remarkably, the man who succeeded him as supreme leader after his death in 1989, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, also shares this same heritage. Khamenei is a direct descendant of the same family line that originated in Kintoor, tracing his roots back to Syed Ahmed Musavi Hindi's brother. This means that for over 4 decades, Iran has been led by 2 men whose ancestral story begins not in Persia, but on the plains of Uttar Pradesh, a fascinating and little-known fact of modern history. The story of Khomeini and his successor, Ali Khamenei, is a powerful reminder of the enduring connection between the Shia communities of India and Iran. This is not just a historical relationship, it is a living, breathing bond that continues to this day. Every year, thousands of Indian Shia Muslims travel to Iran for pilgrimage, visiting the holy shrines in cities like Qom and Mashhad. They are welcomed not as foreigners, but as brothers and sisters in faith, part of a global community that shares a common spiritual heritage. This flow of pilgrims keeps the ancient cultural and religious ties strong and vibrant. The influence is a two-way street. While Indian Shias look to Iran for spiritual guidance, the cultural landscape of Awadh continues to reflect its deep Persian roots. In cities like Lucknow, you can still hear the soft cadences of Persian-influenced Urdu, see architecture that echoes the designs of Isfahan, and witness religious rituals that have been practiced for centuries, connecting local traditions with the wider Shia world. This shared culture acts as a bridge, fostering a sense of familiarity and kinship between the two peoples, even when their governments may have complex political relationships. The bond of faith and culture often proves stronger than politics. Today, in the year 2025, Iran, under the leadership of Ayatollah Khomeini, remains a major force in the Middle East. The nation is currently navigating a tense and dangerous period, marked by escalating conflict with Israel and ongoing pressure from the United States over its nuclear program. As supreme leader, Khomeini continues to voice a message of resistance and self-reliance, principles that have defined the Islamic Republic since its founding. Knowing his ancestral connection to India adds a fascinating layer to these current events, reminding us that the leaders on the world stage often have complex, multicultural histories that are not immediately apparent. This shared heritage serves as a foundation for modern Indo-Iranian relations. Beyond the politics and headlines, there is a deep well of cultural goodwill. It is found in academic exchanges, in the shared love for poets like Rumi and Hafez, and in the quiet respect that comes from a shared history. The journey of Syed Ahmed Musavi Hindi from Kintoor to Khomeini was more than just a personal migration. It planted a seed of connection that has grown for nearly 2 centuries. It is a testament to how family stories can become entwined with the destiny of nations, creating legacies that span continents and generations. The life of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini is a story of immense transformation, both for a man and for a nation. He will forever be remembered as the charismatic leader who inspired a revolution, overthrew a powerful monarchy, and established the world's first modern Islamic republic. His impact on the 20th century is undeniable, and his legacy continues to shape the political landscape of the Middle East and the world. He remains a figure of great controversy in the West, but for millions of his followers, he is a revered icon of spiritual strength, anti-imperialism, and social justice. But his story is also a profound lesson in the nature of identity and heritage. The fact that this towering figure of modern Iranian history had roots in a small Indian village is a powerful reminder that our origins are often more complex and interconnected than we think. His grandfather's proud retention of the name Hindi was a small act with large implications. It preserved a link, a memory of a distant homeland that would become an unexpected part of Iran's leadership legacy. It shows that even as we build new lives in new places, the stories of where we come from remain an integral part of who we are. This shared heritage between India and Iran is a source of quiet strength. It speaks to a history of peaceful exchange, intellectual collaboration, and spiritual kinship that predates modern political boundaries. In a world that is often divided by differences, stories like this highlight our shared humanity. The journey from Kintoor to Khomeini is not just about the past. It is a narrative that can inspire a future of greater understanding and cultural appreciation between two of the world's oldest and richest civilizations. It reminds us that history is full of surprises, and that the most remarkable stories are often hidden in plain sight. Ultimately, the tale of Khomeini's Indian roots enriches our understanding of history. It makes the grand narrative of nations more personal and accessible. It shows us that behind the headlines and the political movements are human stories of family, faith, and migration. The echo of Kintoor in the corridors of power in Tehran is a testament to the unpredictable currents of history and to the enduring power of heritage. It is a story that belongs not just to Iran or to India, but to anyone who believes that our roots give us strength and that our connections to one another are what truly shape the world.